Welcome to another episode of Roll or Die. Today we have another jiu-jitsu couple. Anton loves to get these on, so we are looking forward to getting to know a little bit more our friends black belt Hoshi and head of King's MMA and his lovely wife and partner Amy Friedrich. We've also had their father and father-in-law Stefan on in the past, so we're really keeping it in the family. Thanks for joining us, Hoshi and Amy.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm fascinated to know, like, all three of you have had like MMA fights, I think. Amy, I remember like when I first met you, you were fighting, as far as I recall, or at least training. So like all three of you had fights. Like, what is it like to be in a fight family that's like, I don't think we've ever had multi-generational and interpartnershipy type MMA action. So tell us a bit about that.
Interpartnershipy.
Well, I think probably the first thing is, as parents, we're terrified because now it means that they're going to do it. If the trend continues, So, no, it's all jokes aside. It's actually quite lovely because there's kind of a bond that you get when you share the mats day in and day out with your family, which is really, really lovely. So. One thing that some people don't know about my background and history in MMA is that when I started, I was like 15. My dad decided to jump in as well, and that's when he started. So it wasn't that he fought professionally before I did and I came up knowing about MMA and that sort of thing. He actually started at the same time, and so his thing was just, I'm just going to send it and fight anyway. So he had his first professional fight at like 40. So he was it was incredible to be around and have that kind of energy. But the fact that we did it together and kind of came up together was really special. And then actually he introduced Amy and I in a gym because Amy was already doing judo and jiu-jitsu and that sort of stuff before we ever met. And so we met on the mats as well.
There you go. Wow. I love jiu-jitsu.
That's
couples.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And Hoshi,
wait. I want to hear Amy's part first.
Go. Yeah.
I was just saying, Hoshi's dad was the first person to ever punch me in the face. And I was like, sure, how bad could it be? And then I was like, oh my God.
It's a good introduction to the family. Welcome.
I wanted to ask you, Amy, Hoshi touched on the fact that you guys have a child together now, and I wanted to ask you about how that has been. We've had some other guests on who've also had babies. How's that been for you, like during pregnancy, afterwards? Because, you're back out there, like, killing it. You're competing, you're traveling internationally. Like, how has that been, having a baby?
It's been amazing. Like, I think for me, like, I started, like, fighting sort of semi-professionally in like 2015, and I already had my son when I was my whole journey through martial arts has been like postpartum. So I think for me it's like, I'm used to like balancing the two. But for sure, I think that every person's like postpartum journey is really different. And so for us, like Hoshi basically sort of helped me come back into competing again. So we worked with like physios, strengths coaches. Hoshi helped me with like manage my weight and get back into the right weight class. And so that there's all these different challenges that come with it. But it's having kids, like obviously we're so biased, is just the best because everything that you do whenever you win, it just feels like so much richer sharing it with. So yeah, it's been amazing and we're very lucky. We're very lucky still. So yeah, we love babies, and it's
the right-off effect of having them around.
But it is a challenge, like for sure, being an athlete and kind of figuring out, what you need to do to get back in shape to compete again, for sure. So yeah.
But the fear is real, like that you were talking about, Hosh, before, because my son's now 17 and he's gone went jiu-jitsu, then he went basketball, and he's like, Dad, I think I'm built to fight. I want to fight. And so he's like serious. He's like, I'm going to join Absolute, or I'm going to join somewhere. I'm going to take my MMA seriously. And I'm like, oh shit, like the little creature that I had a big part in his whole martial arts journey. It's now coming to the point where it's like he could be being punched in the face pretty soon, And I don't know, how should I feel about that? I've not been punched in the face. I'm really interested in you guys' thoughts about like what amateur fighting to start with is like. What is the impact of it? Is it a health concern or is it just all good? Just should I let what should I do? Give me some parenting advice here.
I'll give you my 2 cents as a father and as a coach, right?
Mhm.
So, from a coaching perspective, amateur MMA is nothing to be taken lightly. It is for sure real. The risk is really there. It's really serious, and it's not really. I wouldn't really put amateur MMA in a bucket list category. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like some people have things that they want to do for their life, and sometimes it's they want to compete, they want to get out there, they want to test themselves, and they want to make it to a certain point. I don't put MMA in that category. The reason is that, like you said, the risks and the consequences are quite high. Even at amateur MMA, you're using 6 to 8 ounce gloves. And depending on the state that you're in, your shins will either be padded or completely unpadded. And so you're risking not just concussion, but lacerations and all this sort of thing. So it's a fully serious thing. To that end, though, they can absolutely get involved in a really wonderful and safe way if they have the right team and the right support around them. If you have, a team, and I've come across a few different gyms that are like this in the past, that kind of push their guys to fight because they want to be fighters. And they're like, yeah, I want to be a fighter. And you go, great, no worries. And they sign them up for a fight. But if you have a great team around you, they'll know when the timing is right. And they will have a plan to prepare that athlete for competition. So, for example, our guys, they're a highly motivated bunch. They're always in the gym. They're just like nonstop. They're at it, right? So if you say, you give them a benchmark, you're like, hey, I want you to be in the gym twice a day, 5 days a week, once on Saturdays. Like they'll meet it and they'll be like, no problem. We'll shrug it off, right? They'll go for it. But you can't just have like an attendance measurement. You need to have an experienced coach that's able to tell when they're actually ready. So it won't just be the amount of time they spend hitting pads. It'll also then be how their timing is inspiring and whether or not they're able to put things together and figure it out. So MMA is just specific. I feel like such a big sport because there's so many different elements and things that they have to be across. It requires a lot of time to prepare. But once they do, really special experience.
Awesome.
So I'd recommend it to not everyone, but just about everyone. I think it's a great thing to do, so long as you do it correctly.
Yeah. Do you share the same view, Amy? Is it?
So my son, Zach, our oldest, is turning 12 in January. So my 2 things sport-wise that have been kind of compulsory have been swimming lessons and jiu-jitsu lessons until he's a blue belt. And I said, once you get your blue belt, I'll be super happy. You'll have really good rounded skills, you'll be able to handle your body and feel confident in those situations. And swimming is if he gets thrown into the pool when he's a teenager, I want that to be a fun thing, not a scary thing. So those are my 2 non-negotiables. They've been our things that we've really stayed with, raising him. But competition has never been a thing that I've pushed him towards. And the reason for that is I think that, and I'm going to include jiu-jitsu in this because I've seen jiu-jitsu and MMA be really either positive for teenagers and kids and be really negative for them. And I think there's a few things that make it either a really great experience or not so great. And I think one thing about competition is when you, even if you're doing jiu-jitsu, someone will really, come up to you and shake you and try and throw you through the floor. And so you really have to make sure when you're training, and this includes even teenagers and kids, that they're so used to training, their body's conditioned, they're doing it at the right time, that's a challenge that's exciting, that they are really empowered and want to do. And actually the competition should be easier. Competition should be easier than the training. So you need to look at their skills, assess it. And then so Zach, when he's competed, has had an amazing time, has gotten really amazing results. Our team that's competing is doing really well and they're getting amazing results. And that's because they're really adequately prepared, and we don't sort of push. In the beginning we did. We love it. So we kind of wanted everyone to do it. And now we're more the people that are really called to do it will train and will have a positive experience. So I think with your son, it's if he's the one driving it and he's really excited and has a coach that's going to prepare him thoroughly, it makes it so much more safe. It makes it really enjoyable. And then they become really resilient, confident kids. And that's what I've seen from looking at so many up and coming teenagers. And like I look to like say even Cooper, an example of he had great coaching, really adequate preparation, and now he's gone on to do amazing things and, you know, inspiring other like young people. So for me, whether it's MMA or jiu-jitsu, it's about thorough preparation, having a good coach, and really going into that with the right mindset. And I think like what Hoshi said is like, it's not really that, it's not always that lighthearted competition. Training can be, but competing really. So.
Oh no, we just lost you
I've
guys.
got a bit of technical issues here. I think
we just lost you. We got you back. Yeah, we lost you at the very end there, but I got almost all of that. It was amazing. You guys, thank you so much for your contribution. That's spot on. That's just the advice I need right now. So thank you.
Yeah. I wanted to ask Hoshi about, you recently received your black belt from Tiago. You went over to Brazil, which is amazing. Like, I don't actually know anybody that's had that experience. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It was incredible. It was one of my favorite things I've done in martial arts so far. I'm very fortunate that fighting and competing and training and all this sort of stuff has taken me all over the world. So I've been able to, you know, travel to Singapore, Thailand, USA, like the different spots, but I had never been to the motherland of jiu-jitsu, you know. And so to be able to go there was incredible enough without it being, oh, you went there and you got to grade. It was like just the most incredible thing.
Can I interrupt? Did you know prior to going that that was the reason? Or
I had a suspicion. Yeah, we had a few discussions around grading to black belt and that sort of stuff in general, and how it could be done. You know, since he left the country, I think there were a lot of people in Australia that are going to really miss his coaching. And I always saw my journey taking me. I have, since being a blue belt, trained under either Tiago or black belts of Tiago. So depending on my circumstances and how close I was to his gym and that sort of thing, it kind of changed whether or not I was able to train under him, you know, all the time, or whether or not I would be training under one of his black belts. And so I always thought I would grade under him. And it was kind of like this moment, you know, when he moved back for his family and that. And I'm so happy for him. He has such a beautiful setup in life there. It's so gorgeous. But you know, for a selfish level, I was like, oh man, I really wanted to receive my black belt from that man. And so I started planning trips to go and visit him and train with him, you know, because I really felt that connection deeply. And for me, martial arts has always been more so about the people and the journey and the connections that you're building, rather than just, you know, A to B, it's going to be a result, you know. So the experience of going to Brazil was amazing. The level of talent I was exposed to there was incredible. Such amazing training. He was able to take me around to a few different gyms and meet these amazing people. I was able to meet his coach and train with, you know, people that I'd heard about for years and years and years, and finally be able to meet these guys and roll with them. And just, it was so fantastic. And one thing that really stuck out to me was, and has actually always stuck out to me if I go to the States and that sort of thing as well, but it was more so in Brazil that I saw this. The amount of collaboration and learning happening with black belts on the mat. So when a black belt was on the mat and they weren't teaching the class, they were there as a student of jiu-jitsu, and they were there to continue their learning. And it was a beautiful thing, because in Australia, since coming up, you know, black belts have been few and far between, and now it's, you know, it's evolving and sport is growing so rapidly. But we've always just seen them as, oh, they either own the gym or they're at the head of the class, and that's the only black belt in the room. And it's like, you know, you very rarely get that. There's lots of black belts. And when I was there were lots of black belts, not lots of black belts just around, lots of black belts there learning on the mat to train and to try and figure some new stuff out. And it was just a great thing to really highlight that point that so many black belts make, which is that, you know, the journey basically just continues as it did before. You're chasing this this way of perfecting your fighting art without ever being able to reach the end, because it's so evolving. So it was really beautiful. And the other really big kind of point of the training philosophy there was a lot of enjoyment. Here in a few different spaces, I've seen people get really sucked into the grind of training and like, oh, I have to make it work. I have to get to my sessions, punch the clock, in, out, on the mat, off the mat. And they just they kind of like they're working it like a job. And in one way, you have to get results. You have to do a lot of hours. But I was seeing guys that were very high level competitors, like top ranked in Brazil, go there with a lot of joy. And they were putting this energy on the mat that was like, we're here to learn and we're here to have a great time because this is what we love. And they were kind of like holding that true, which was really beautiful.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing. Actually, that brings me to your gym because, your gym's, it creates fighting machines pretty much, right? So, for the most part. So what is the culture like in your gym? I mean, I've been to your new gym only once, actually. Had a monthly masters there a while back. And I just thank you for having us there. But I got to see it's an amazing setup. But I imagine that when people get there, they're there to work. So although you went there and discovered the culture overseas, and back here it's a bit more grindy, what do you got? What's it like in the King's factory?
In the King's factory, it is amazing. It's upbeat. It's fun. Mm-hmm. All the guys that are there every day. You have to lock the gym to get them out. You know what I mean? Like their motivation is not an issue. Like you said, we're building fighting machines, but I feel like that's the students' fault. They just want to be there and they're training hard all the time,
Mm-hmm.
Like overnight time, you're right. Like we get in there, we put in work. It's a beautiful space, but she gets steamy. It's like we're going to sweat until it drips off the walls. And that's
like a nightclub back in my nightclubbing times. That's what that reminds me of.
Awesome. I've got a question for Amy. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, shoot.
I was just going to say, anyone that's followed your Instagram accounts or whatever would straight away be struck by just your positivity. And I just wanted to ask you, like, how do you do it? Have you got any words of wisdom for our listeners about how you just stay so upbeat all the time? Like, how do you do it?
Yeah, so I think this is like a philosophy, and we sort of we talk about this a lot in the gym, and I think that this is how we have such like hard workers too. I think like self-care and positivity actually create resilience. It's really funny, like if you're positive and kind, sometimes people like have this assumption that makes you softer or weaker, and I've actually found the reverse to be true. So for me, I think it's about, so like, that saying, like the head moves the body. So it's like your thinking and your mindset affects your actions. So for me, everything that you want to create in your life is going to come from the actions that you take, and that's going to be directed by your thinking. So I put a lot of emphasis and a lot of effort into like improving my mindset, working with coaches, challenging my negative thinking continuously, trying to have more positive input into my life than negative input. And I guard my sort of like mental health very seriously, because I think that so often, and it's really easy, like, it's so easy to look at other people's lives and like have 20/20 vision. You're like, if they could only believe in themselves, they'd do so well. But to actually turn that inward and go, why aren't I where I need to be? What's going on with me? And like, I think for me, I started before martial arts, like long distance running, and I didn't really think I could do it. And I sort of, over time, like sort of through getting better at running and achieving things I didn't think I could do, I could really see the connection between, my mind and what I was able to sort of achieve. And that's been the same with the business, with parenting, like, buying a house, with all the things that we've sort of done and achieved have come from really cleaning up your thinking a lot of the time. And I think it's two things. It's like not just about thinking positively, it's also about challenging the stressful limiting beliefs that you sort of have, because the function of the brain is to think, right? So you have to be aware, because you're going to be thinking all the time, all day, and it's either going to be derailing you or serving you.
I love that.
And I would add to that, it is infectious. So you were asking about the environment in the gym before, and having Amy on the mats, it is absolutely infectious, because it's not just positivity and people get more upbeat. They do. That's just like, they're there to train. They're so happy already. But it's when those doubts creep in and you have those really rough nights on the mat and that sort of stuff. It takes someone quite unique and quite special to be able to assist you to see the good in that session. You just had the piss beaten out of you for an hour and a half, and it might not be very nice, right? But at the end of the day, you need to be able to come back for your next session tomorrow so that you can continue that path of progression and getting better. And so you need that culture and that environment that's not about crushing someone and bringing them down. it's a means of making them tougher. You need to be able to come back and do it again and again and again. Yeah. And that is one of the great things that Amy brings to the table, to the team.
A rising tide raises all ships. Yeah.
Just on that, just one other question, if that's okay. I think it flows on from that. I think we've asked this of other people, other couples that we've had on in this situation. So do you guys kind of wear different hats? So when you're on the mat, you're there as a coach and a student sort of thing, and then when you go home, you're back to being partners, or does it bleed into the home life? How does that go for you?
I would go so far as to say that anyone that says they can compartmentalize it completely is wrong, and not all of them, but they're talking an ideal. It's impossible to not, because when you come home at the end of the day, let's say you have a partner that doesn't do jiu-jitsu or doesn't fight, and you tell them about your day and you tell them about the highs and lows of your day and what you've experienced. Probably training's going to find a way into that, or things that you're thinking about, what you're wondering, what comps you might do, or where you want to go, or what travel you want to take on. For us, it's all intertwined. So our personal passion, our work, our hobbies, our interests, and we just so happen to live with one another. So the conversation absolutely has to continue. But in terms of the way we interact with one another and the way we are on the mats versus off the mats, quite similar. We're friendly. I feel like it's nice, right? But at the end of the day, we're still there to get a job done. So there is an element of frankness that we both need in order to make that happen. So if there's something that Amy needs for her competition prep and needs out of her training, she needs to be able to tell me point blank. And sometimes it doesn't need it needs to not have the frills in order to be getting across, and vice versa. Well, if I need to get something out of her so that she can get the result that she ultimately wants, I need to be able to say that in a frank way, and for that to be what it is in a coaching and student relationship, I guess.
So true. That was really highlighted for me in that Rose Nama Eunice match recently, where her husband was cornering her, and she just wasn't getting the information that she needed in order to win that fight. And it's like he couldn't be frank with her. That was my takeaway anyway from watching that. And I think that's, I don't know, I'm not an expert, but, that's what I saw.
Well, I think there's a common misconception that frankness must be harsh and that it's innately rude. I think that my relationship with all my athletes, and doesn't differ with Amy, is that it's a collaborative approach. So I need the athlete to be on board with everything that we're trying to achieve. If they're not on board, they can't do the work, they can't follow the nutrition plan, they can't get the training. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. So none of my teaching philosophy is actually going to help if it's falling on deaf ears and ones that aren't motivated to get the same result. So it must be a collaboration. Likewise, if I'm not listening to the athlete, right, and I'm trying to get them to do something that's just not aligned with their goals, it's not going to work for either of us. So it's just not going to work. So it has to be a collaboration. So you have to both really, really be on board. And I think that that's probably one thing that I think we're fantastic at. So it's great. It really is a collaboration, and we're trying to always achieve an outcome together. As opposed to me being like, I see everything that you're doing wrong, you have to do this. It's like, no. She's like, hey, we need some help working this out. And we have to actually figure that out together.
That's awesome. Wow. Yeah. We only have 2 minutes left. Is that right, Kim and Hoshi and Amy?
Are you guys able to go a little bit over, or you want to finish right on?
Yeah, we'll be all right.
Right. Well, okay, we always love to know how you found jiu-jitsu, because obviously it's primarily a jiu-jitsu show, although we love going down the path of other kind of
grappling arts and
But how did you come across jiu-jitsu?
You want to go first? Because we met after we both were introduced to jiu-jitsu, so we got different tales.
I started with judo with my dad when I was younger, and then I was doing a lot of running. After I had my son, I wanted to get in really good shape, so I was doing long distance running. I was doing half marathons, and then I was at that point of will I do a marathon, or I was going to do a half Ironman. But I was getting really bored because the jump from doing a half marathon to a marathon is no joke. That is significantly more training volume per week. So I was I'm gonna have to run for a couple of hours just on a Wednesday. And then I was I need something that is more exciting. And so I went, I'll go try judo again. And then I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I love this. I stepped on the mat, and this is when I was 19. And I was like, oh, this is my thing. And then from there, I found that was Japanese judo, then Japanese jiu-jitsu. Then I wanted to like compete. So then I started with MMA, and I started like fighting MMA. And then from there, I was doing jiu-jitsu and MMA at the same time, side by side. And I was just kind of getting a bit medium at both. So I decided to pick a lane and emphasize and focus on jiu-jitsu. So that's me. I just love it.
Wow.
I'm just, yeah, I love it. Loved it from like day one too. Like I stepped on the mat. I was like, it didn't take any convincing. I was just like, this is so much more fun than running. Amazing. So yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. Awesome.
And Hoshi, how about you?
Well, I was introduced to martial arts when I was a baby. So dad was a karate instructor and ran a school in our local town. So I started training with him as soon as I could coordinate. And I was very excited about that. But yeah. So it was great fun. It was a great way to grow up and fantastic in terms of like having a bit of discipline and being able to focus and coordinate my body and move and do everything that I needed to do in terms of striking, but it was in no way grappling. As part of that program, my dad actually is also a judo brown belt. He started with judo before he did karate. And he was a competitor when he was younger and did that sort of journey. And so he taught a little bit of judo in our karate lessons, and we tried to be a bit more well-rounded. So the maximum, kind of, I knew about groundwork was, I don't know, Taitoshi Osotogari, short armbar, let's go, right? So then I would just, I did that. But when I got to 15, I was getting a bit, energetic and as some, 17-year-olds do. I was 15 when this happened, and I started wanting to fight. And so I found a local boxing promoter and asked him to fight, and he suggested MMA to me. They had like, they had a judo club out the back of their boxing gym, like on the basketball courts. and out back there was just some filthy MMA guys that were doing it, and they were like, there was a jiu-jitsu brown belt that was teaching, and so that was my introduction to jiu-jitsu. They were learning MMA on these judo mats from someone else's club. Like they were just sort of teaching a little bit. It was
amazing.
Yeah, so I jumped forward and had my first fight at 16 and loved it, and just continued that journey and grappling as part of my MMA. And I feel like it got a lot further along. Like I did only grappling in terms of strictly for MMA, or no gi stuff, or wrestling and all that sort of thing. Even though I was learning from a jiu-jitsu coach, I didn't really put the gi on until I was 18. And then I started doing jiu-jitsu properly, and I had my first professional MMA fight when I was 19. I got my blue belt when I was 19 as well, and that was my like push into jiu-jitsu.
Wow.
And so
amazing, man.
You are now a black belt, and so what's next for you guys? Like Anton mentioned that Hoshi, you've just recently opened up a new location for Kings. Is that going to be your focus? Are you kind of looking at competing as well? And how about you, Amy? Like I know you've been overseas a fair bit. Are you looking at doing that again? What's coming up?
We got a few things on the docket. Not going to lie.
Busy
we're going to be a bit tight-lipped about some of the things that we're looking to do, because we just need to make sure that the announcements happen at the right time and that sort of stuff. But we have a really exciting 2023 planned for this year. I think in the last in the last 12 months from this weekend, Amy, like you said before, she had a baby in June of last year. And so we went back to Worlds in December last year. We did Nationals when we came back, Central Coast Open. We did Pan Pacs. Oh, we did another Worlds, and then we did Pan Pacs. And so it's been a pretty busy schedule for the last 12 months.
Amazing. That alone is a whole show, actually. Like that's phenomenal, by the way.
Yeah, so it's been super busy, and the results have just been incredible. So, we're looking forward to just enjoying Christmas with our family and taking some downtime rather than heading over to the States again for Nogi Worlds. So this is probably the first time we've been at home in that season for a really long time when we weren't having a baby or something, So it's really cool that we're gonna spend the summer here. And then I think we're kind of eyeballing There's a bit of chatter that IBJJF is bringing back the Sydney Open, which is really exciting in terms of the local competitors for ranking and that sort of stuff. It's just super important. So that would be great. And we're eyeballing, Euros, Pan Am's, Worlds, the usual kind of circuit for jiu-jitsu. Yeah.
Wow. Awesome.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
Hoshi, in that time, it was great. Like Hoshi had the main event fight on Hex, and he also had like his first like professional boxing fight. So now he's like, yeah, it's like professional MMA fighter, karate black belt, jiu-jitsu black belt, now pro boxer. So it's between us, like we do different things, but like my main goal will be gi worlds, and so we're basically going to be moving down to, I'm going to be moving down to lightweight, and we just have like sort of a lot of competitions between now and then that we want to fit in as much as we can basically next year in the gi. And then Hoshi gets offered a lot of boxing fights and MMA fights, and so it'll be interesting because, there's also some like really great jiu-jitsu comps, and like now in the black belt, like I think that he would do very well. So we're very excited to book a few things, but
that's
it's
awesome.
like a very spicy year for us, I think.
Excellent. Watch this space by the sound of it.
Yeah, what belt are you nowadays, Amy? I haven't seen you in so long. What belt? What belt is Amy?
Amy is a purple belt, and yeah, she's a purple belt killer.
Purple belt killer. I'll keep my eye out. Awesome.
There's some constraints in terms of grading and that sort of stuff that you have to adhere to with IBJJF, and making sure that you're progressing with long enough intervals between your belts and all that sort of stuff. So we're going to be doing lightweight gi worlds at purple before starting to attack the other divisions.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
That's good. I have like a few months to get my head around like that next like rule set change. So sort of together we're already starting to sort of plan like the leg improvements and the stylistic changes that we need to make. And we've sort of also brought into the gym like some S&C. We've brought in an amazing strength coach, Myra White. She came 5th at World, 2nd at Nationals. Like she's doing amazing. So we're looking at really working with her a lot for us and our athletes too. So yeah, I know, it's so exciting.
It's an exciting journey in terms of as coaches and athletes, I suppose. So it takes up, a fair bit of attention and that sort of stuff. We can't just, zero in on what we're doing alone. We also have to consider the squad and what they're going to be taking on throughout the year. Where we're going to compete and what shows we're going to put them through and that sort of stuff. Yeah, so that's really cool.
A couple of really amazing competitors, a couple of amazing like female competitors coming up, and a few MMA and jiu-jitsu people that we're nurturing along. So we also have their comps to kind of make sure that we want to be available for them too. So it's a lot to calendar in. Do you guys find that, like Kim, I know that you do coaching as well, so like do you find like it a bit tricky to balance like that coaching and then your own personal goals as well?
100%. Yeah, definitely. Most definitely. So yeah, we could have a whole other podcast on that, and also about having a partner that also does train and fitting it in and all of that. So 100%. So yeah.
You guys will have to come back. You guys will have to come back, especially after the Worlds, maybe do that.
Yeah. So yeah, we took a little while to get this happening. So thank you guys for your patience. We had a bit of negotiating to find a mutually suitable time for all of us. So thank you once again for giving up your time and making this happen. We will have this episode out in a couple of weeks. If you could share it on your platforms, that would be awesome for us to help to grow our audience. But we are nearly out of time. So just want to say thank you once again. And,
thank you. Thanks so much for having us on, guys. We really appreciate it.
Awesome, you're welcome.
Cheers.
Awesome. We will see you on the mats.
That'd be great. Cheers.
See ya. Bye.